My first official teaching job was a nightmare, and I'm about to tell you all about it. We're wasting time. Hello everyone, welcome to my channel, or welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I'm Ali Mack and I'm a teacher, and I'm here to help you have the best school year ever. Now, if you watch any of my videos, you know that throughout there's a common theme that I'm always saying I'm trying to help teachers so they don't have to go through the things that I went through. Well, I decided today that I am going to speak up about one of those experiences. It has been almost 10 years since this experience happened, so I feel like it's safe to talk about it now. This is the story about when I taught a variety of math courses at a private school over the summer. So if you're interested in how this turned out for me, please keep watching. Let me give you a little bit of background before we get into the actual story. I had graduated college in December 2009. I substitute taught from January 2010 through May 2010. During this time as a substitute teacher, I applied for jobs in every single school district that was a 45-minute radius from my house. The house I was living in at the time belonged to my grandmother, who passed away in 2006. I shared this family house with my uncle, so I had 2 small children and I didn't have to pay rent or utilities where I was currently living. The goal was to get a few paychecks and then see what I could do to get my own establishment. But you know what I learned about going on all these interviews and going and doing and whatever? It is really hard to get a teaching job when you have 0 years experience in a classroom. It is almost impossible, y'all. At least it was back then. My mother jumped in and saved the day. She knew a person that knew another person that owned a private school in Jackson, Mississippi. This was about an hour away from the house I lived in. I locked down an interview at this private school. Now, for what it's worth, I don't know if it matters, this school was not a religious private school. It's just if you have ever heard of anything about Jackson Public Schools in Mississippi, you know that a lot of people don't want to send their children there. Okay, so I got all dressed up in my beat up car and I went for my interview. The owner was lovely and kind. I met her adult daughter. She was also lovely and kind. Both of these ladies seemed very impressed by me and the fact that I could teach mathematics from kindergarten all the way to 12th grade. I agreed to take the position to teach 2 sessions of Algebra 2. In my interview, I made sure these ladies knew I did not feel confident teaching anything above Algebra 2. Growing up, I always had a love-hate relationship with math. Whenever I reached Algebra 2 in high school myself, I used to fall asleep in the back. Yes. So my mom noticed my grade was not well, so she talked to the teacher. I moved right in front of my professor and I got a tutor. So I was able to learn and be more number savvy, if you will. In college, I literally took college algebra 3 times. Take that back, 4 times. And the 4th time I got a perfect score. So I finally mastered it. I have learned that with myself personally, if something's out of my interest, it takes me a little longer to grasp it, but when I do grasp it, I have it. And all the math classes above Algebra 2 were not in this category. This will be important later. I would also like to add that it is a known fact that private schools do not pay as much as public schools. At the time, a first-year teacher with no experience could start off in Mississippi making $30,000 a year. At this particular private school, a teacher working a school year could make about $20,400 a year, and this did not include retirement or any of the benefits that come with being a government worker. Private schools do not take state tests, so they are not held to as high of a standard as public schools. Again, this was in 2010. Both my babies were little. My daughter was 6 years old and my son was 5 years old. She had already attended kindergarten and my son was about to go into kindergarten. This school was amazing because they waived my children's tuition fees so I could work there and have a place to have my children so I wouldn't have to pay daycare costs. The main catch of this job was the pay wasn't as much as I was expecting coming out of college, and also I would have to relocate to the Jackson area. Once again, my mom jumped in and saved the day. She agreed to let myself and my children stay at her house over the summer while I worked so I could save up some money and look for places to live in the meantime. My mother was also very sweet, and so was my aunt. They both took me shopping for school clothes. I got some pretty summer dresses with some cardigans that matched and some cute summer shoes. I was so ready for my first day as a teacher. All of that hard work had finally paid off. Upon my arrival for my first day of school, I was brought into the office and I was told that my 2 sessions of Algebra 2 had been combined into 1 session. So instead of having 2 sessions of 10 students, I had 1 of 20. Not a big deal. But they had signed me up to teach for a 2nd session of trigonometry, pre-calculus, and advanced math. They said this class would not officially start until 2 days later, so I had time to work on it.
I wanted to die.
When I tell you I wanted to die, I wanted to die. I was in there, I was going to impress everybody, and it was like I was being set up to fail. So listen, y'all, I had to work hard for what math I know. I had to work hard for it. I made it out of my trigonometry class with a C, and I had never taken a calculus class in my life. How was I going to teach it? It had taken me years to master what I already knew.
I should have never agreed to do this. I shouldn't have. But listen, y'all, this was my first job. And I'm such a people pleaser, I did not want to disappoint them. If I had to do it over again, I would have definitely said no. I decided that I was going to figure this out and I was going to get through it. Luckily for me, my mom knew a guy and he was willing to help me. She worked with him and he would tutor me.
I cannot remember which subject for the life of me that he tutored me. I think it was just a blur, but I want to say he tutored me in trigonometry.
Even when I was being tutored, it might as well have been a different language. It is so different to know something well enough to get a C in it and mastering it and being able to teach it to someone else. Especially since the room I was teaching in did not have a projector, so it's not like I could show a video of something I wasn't sure of.
But if I had to do that over, I think I would have really looked into Khan Academy. I don't know if it was a thing back then, but I would have really studied Khan Academy and I would have gone through their classes and then taught those to my students. So if you're ever in this situation, Khan Academy is your friend.
My Algebra 2 class was filled with a lot of characters. These were the students that had failed it when they were at high school and they had to come to summer school to take it over so they could graduate with their peers. Many of them were really nice and quiet, but then there were some that were spoiled brats. One of them was the little smart aleck and all the teachers had talked about him. He went to this school during the normal school year. He used to threaten to slash my tires, and I had just bought a brand new car. It was a 2010 Kia Soul. In my class one day, he had 2 big pieces of paper like this, and he was writing all the notes for his chemistry test. He taped them to his thighs underneath his shorts, and he was talking about he was going to cheat on his test. I told on him, I ratted him out, I sure did, and he didn't get to get a good grade on that test because the dean of the school stood by him the entire time during his test. Shortly after that, the hood of my car was damaged. It's like he just took a knife and just said, ugh. I don't know if it was this boy or not, but I don't know why anyone else would do that. I was so sad when I saw my car. It was brand new.
Looking back on this now, I really should have called that boy's parents and said, your child is threatening to slash my tires.
There was one boy in that class that was accident prone. In fact, he came in on crutches. He had broken both his legs. Apparently, he had snuck onto the roof to smoke a cigarette and he fell off the roof. He was the one that would always be leaning back in his chair and fall, you know, that one. And then he came in from the 4th of July. His whole face was covered with 2nd-degree burns. And I was like, what happened to you? And he said a firecracker blew up in his face. I'm like, oh, bless your heart. You need to get it together. You're not going to make it past your 18th birthday. I will say this though, near the end of my Algebra 2 class, I was starting to win them over. I feel like I was starting to win them over.
But my trigonometry and pre-calculus classes were a disaster.
The kids in those classes were highly intelligent, quirky, my favorite type of people, and they knew more about these subjects than I did.
I could sort of get through the trigonometry lessons, but pre-calculus, oh my gosh, I couldn't do it. Just couldn't do it.
There was one student in there that actually had paid for this class with his own money. So of course he complained about how awful I was.
Naturally.
I was called to the office with a complaint about this. And that's when I finally told them.
Remember when I told you that I did not feel comfortable teaching anything higher than Algebra 2? Do you remember that? Like, oh, we just thought you could study a little bit and then you'd be back on and you could do it. I'm like, no, it's taken me years to master this. Years. And I told him how I'd gotten a tutor and all that other stuff. But you know, it is what it is.
As this boy had complained, they had hired a trigonometry teacher that had once taught the owner's adult daughter trigonometry. So she came in and gave me some relief. So that was a blessing. But I was on my own for pre-calculus. I finally just sat at a desk with all the students and we would go through the problems in the textbook and try to figure them out together. This was beyond humiliating. I was supposed to know how to tell them how to do it, not the other way around. It was really hard going to work every day, trying to pretend to be awesome at this one subject that I was terrible at. Anyone that knows me knows that I am always transparent with my abilities. If I can't do something, I'll tell you I can't do it. But if I do something well, I'll tell you I do it well.
But please don't make me lie about my abilities.
I just felt like a big fat phony up there in front of those kids. Another thing I would like to add is the owner's adult daughter yelled at me in front of my entire class. I don't remember why. I just don't, for the life of me, cannot remember why, but I remember feeling attacked and embarrassed, and all these kids were looking at me as she's yelling at me, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I've never seen this happen or heard of this happening in a public school. She should have known better than that.
You don't ever, ever, ever yell at a teacher in front of her kids. Even if you're an administrator, even if you're the owner, even if you are a teacher looking in, you don't fuss at another teacher in front of her class. It's like Teacher 101. You don't do it.
Another time where I felt like it was unprofessional, I was reviewing my Algebra 2 students for a test. I had divided them up into 2 teams, and since we didn't have any bells or noisemakers, when the kids knew the answer, they had to call out the name of their team name. One of the teams wanted to be called the Cougars. Yeah, so all you heard was Cougar, 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 Cougar. So I'm assuming that I can probably give the owner's husband the benefit of the doubt on this one, but he came into our class and yelled at all of us. He fussed at us for being so loud.
Any administrators out there can learn that before you fuss at the class or the teacher, figure out what's going on first. There might be a legitimate reason for it.
This is when I realized I had won my students over. They were talking about complaining to their parents about how they all got fussed at when I was trying to help them learn something. I told them not to do that, obviously, but in the moment I felt very ashamed that I had to be corrected by one of my bosses. That's always humiliating. Now, another fun occurrence that happened while I was teaching here is I got a really bad bladder infection.
And I know this might be a TMI, but I'm talking about blood in the urine bladder infection.
And this was because at this school, we were not allowed to drink water in the classroom. So basically from 8 to 12, we cannot drink water. And let me remind you, this is South Mississippi in the summer. As the summer was coming to an end, I got pulled into the office. We were going to discuss the upcoming school year. I was very scared and uncomfortable because I really was not happy with my experiences at this school.
The only thing that made it even doable was the fact that I had met some really amazing kids.
But seeing as though I had applied everywhere and nobody wanted me to work for them, I felt like this was my only option. It is really hard to get a teaching job with 0 years experience. Anyway, I went into the office, my contract was ready, the dean of students was a notary public.
And everyone was looking at me, hovering, like, come on, sign, sign, sign. I felt pressured to sign, and I did because I'm a people pleaser and I just suck.
But let me tell you, if this ever happens to you or you're ever in this situation, just firmly say, I need to take this home and read over it, or I need to take this home and let my attorney look over it and I'll bring it back to you. Don't sign it if you don't feel comfortable signing it. Please don't put yourself in this situation. Don't do it. Once I signed, she notarized it in front of me and it was now a binding contract. And of course, shortly after this, I got a call from one of the schools I had applied for. It was only a 30-minute drive from my house. I decided to go to the interview anyway, just to see what would happen. Especially because when I was examining my budget, I would have had to have support from my mother every month to be able to live on my own in this area. I didn't want to do that. I didn't want her to feel like she had to pay my way to live. That's not a good place to be. The whole point of going to college is that no one has to take care of you, right? And I also went to the interview because I really was not pleased the way this private school had handled me. So I went to this other interview and I got the job, making 30-something thousand a year, all the benefits, retirement, I could retire in 25 years, and all the perks that come with being a teacher, including getting a paycheck during the summer, whereas at this private school, I would have had to work year-round to get a paycheck during the summer. Plus, I wouldn't have to move from my family house where I could live there rent-free. When I had to go and tell the owner of the private school that I would not be working there for the 2010-2011 school year, it was horrible. It was like the kindness that she once showed me was now gone. She was very stern and very business, which I get it. I do get it. You know, it is a business, right? Basically, she told me that they needed $1,000 in cash in order for me to get out of my contract. And it did say that in the contract, but they would not take a check. They would not take a money order. They wanted cash, which to me seems a little fishy.
You don't have to claim cash on your taxes, do you?
My mom and her husband fronted the $1,000 cash, and I took it to that school on an evening. Didn't even give me a receipt. By the way,
If you ever give anyone $1,000 cash, demand a receipt. I'm so stupid. But anyway, I've learned from it, and maybe you don't have to make that mistake either.
so anyway, they fronted the money to me and I paid it to the school, and then my dad sent them the money, so they weren't at a loss. So many times in my life, my dad has bailed me out, and I am so blessed.
Now, back to the story. I am so lucky they did not try to say that I did not give them the $1,000 because I didn't get a receipt. They very well could have said that she never paid the money. There would have been no evidence of it. So I was so stupid, again, and so therefore, I got really lucky that they did not say that.
Now every time I think of the school, I see red, like red. It makes me so mad even almost 10 years later. But I'm more mad at myself than them because I was so stupid and naive, and I was in that situation, and I could have put a stop to so many different scenarios. But I do feel like they did take advantage of me being so naive. There were so many red flags, and I ignored every single one of them. I had heard from other people that the current owner of this school had inherited it, and the person who owned it before her really cared about learning and really wanted students to have a safe place to learn. But the new owner looked at it as more like a cash cow, just bringing the money in.
This would explain why they had a teacher, me, teaching subjects I had not mastered yet. This would explain why they kept bringing students into my Algebra 2 class no matter how far we had gotten into the curriculum.
And who knows, at the end of the day, this is a business.
I like to think that if my mom's friend hadn't gotten me the job at this school, I would have put up a little bit more of a fight with different issues. But I'm a people pleaser, and someone did me a favor, and someone did my mom a favor, and I did not want it to look bad for her. You know, and that's a stupid reason. My mom wouldn't want me to get walked on.
I really wanted my first teaching job to be successful, and I feel like my Algebra 2 class was. But the other class, I was immediately set up to fail. Anyway, to conclude, once I paid the money, it was over, and I could get all my belongings and go back home and start preparing for my upcoming teaching job. Thank you so much for watching. So anyway, I hope you found this video helpful. Please like, share, and subscribe. Tell me what you think about this story in the comments below, and you can tell me how naive I was. I know. I also want to add how much I appreciate you watching this video to the very end. It means so much to me. And I can't wait to see you in my next video. Goodbye.